What's up, everybody? We are live from Sri Lanka. I have a very special guest, so we're doing this in a little different way because we both don't fit in the screen. So this is Shavita. Come on in, Shavita.
Hello. How are you guys? So nice to be here.
Very nice to meet. Very nice having you again.
I know.
The last time we met, I was in London 2 years ago.
Yep.
And you were only in town for a day. You're from Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And we made a video that went viral because we talked about children and what's it like being a parent to awakened children or children who are awakening. And so let's just start off where we left.
Yeah.
What is your relationship now? How do you parent children as an awakened parent?
You know what you do? I think the most important thing for me is to teach them by example of how you live your life. And you give them all the information that you've learnt along your journey, and then it's up to your children to take on what they want to, because you can't wake them up. They have their own journey. You're just a facilitator in their lives, and that's how I do it. That's how I try to so I don't push it on them. I just share information, and I also tell my children, go do your own research. Don't listen to me. Find out for yourself, because if you find out for yourself, there's more chances that you will believe what you've just discovered.
So do you feel like you own your children, or do you feel like your children are yours, or like how do you parent?
No.
What do you teach them about school and habits and things like that?
So with my children, I think they come through me, but I'm a facilitator of their life until they get to a point in their lives where they can facilitate their own lives. And they're young while they're under my guardianship. I look after them, I feed them, I put a roof over their heads, and I guide them to as much as I can. But at the end of the day, it's their lives. They've chosen me to be their mother, and I've chosen them to be my children in the spiritual world, whatever you want to call it. And we both got to learn from each other. So I'm learning and they're learning at the same time. And with schooling, I say go to school if you want, don't go to school if you want, it's up to you. I didn't go to school, I didn't finish school, and I did quite okay in my life. So that's why I can say it with confidence to them. Whatever you learn at school, take it on, but don't believe everything, because we are in a system that educates us to be workers. That's what the system teaches you. So I want them to think free of that.
Yeah. So what do their parents say to you, or what do their friends say to you when you let your children have free reign and let them do what they want? Because my conscious mind says, wow, that's bonkers. You just let your children make decisions, but that's really about letting go of control. And so what do their parents say to you, or what do you?
So the kids, my children's friends, say, oh my gosh, you're so lucky to have parents like this. But the parents, I don't tell them my philosophy, because I still want my kids to have the friends. So not all of their parents are mostly into education, and they really like put that as a forefront in their lives, and the kids are usually stressed trying to pass exams. So everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but I don't go shouting out loud, except today with you guys. That's my belief. So, I do say my emphasis is not so much on education, it's about the journey and enjoying the journey, and learn for yourself. Become an investigator in your own life.
As a whole, did you think the education systems are worthless these days?
No, it's out of date the moment you've learned something, because AI, information, everything's on your fingertips, and my children can learn anything they want off YouTube, on AI. So you really don't need an education. You can go online and start a business on social media like this.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, is that we are evolving.
Yeah.
Do your children know? Do you ever talk about the matrix or simulation or programming? Is that a thing in your house?
I teach them things, and then sometimes they roll their eyes, and I think, okay, I'll just back up a bit. They are aware of it, but I also tell them, do your own research. Don't listen to me, because usually teenage kids don't listen to their parents anyway. And then they go and do their own research, and they say, oh, I did hear something, I did research this, and I do agree with you. And you see a slow change. And it's not pushing my opinion on them, it's just gently having conversations, and then it's up to them to decide what they're going to do. That's the key. We're all free to be whatever we want to be.
That very good point. So how did you wake up? How did you, there's so many different levels to saying I'm awake, I'm aware. You go through the programming, and obviously, again, you're from, grew up in London, right? You were born in London?
So I'm Indian, made in England, live in Australia. So I grew up in London. I think my first awakening experience was when I was 5 years old in my parents' house, thinking, I don't believe I belong here in this world, because it felt a bit odd. And then, society takes you over and you go into the system and you forget your intuition from when you were born. And then I went back to it when I started questioning things. And of course, 2020 was the biggest awakening, where I started questioning everything I believed in. And now I choose to live, I choose to trust my intuition now. Instead of what people tell me and what I hear in the news, or which I don't watch the news or read the newspapers, I try to tune into my intuition.
Intuition is the guide.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so you started having these instances in life. Did you feel like you knew magic? Did you feel like you could have been a high priestess, or all these terms that we use? Did you feel like you had gifts since the time you were little, like as far as moving objects, or did strange things happen around you?
I think I was able to tell, like you're able to predict the next outcome, but I sort of was programmed to believe, oh, don't believe in that. So I just disregarded that ability from living life in the matrix, or whatever you want to call it. And then after, I think in the last 4 years, I've really started to try to tap into that. So I do get bits of it, but now I'm actually consciously aware of tapping into my intuition and being in the present moment, because that's the key.
So what are your gifts? Like going through the awakening, knowing the construct we live in. Obviously you're a mother, you're a wife. What are your gifts? And obviously you help women, but what are your gifts, and how do you help bring those into reality?
I think because I used to be a financial planner, and my gift for me is to make a complicated situation and explain it in a simple language. That's how I feel, as if that's one of my gifts, and hopefully be able to communicate a complicated situation and explain it to the everyday person in a simple language, so it's easy to understand and process, so then you can understand it and go and do your own research from the information you've gotten from me or from anybody else. That's my take on it.
And so how do you help women? Because we've had several conversations about women's menstrual cycle and how this whole program starts, and how women could technically break the matrix if enough of them woke up. Can you explain a little bit about womb wisdom?
So womb wisdom, I'm going to show a diagram, right?
Okay.
Explaining the red thread. So this is the red thread. So we carry information from our ancestors. So in this picture, can you see the picture okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah? So this is the person, this body silhouette is your grandmother. And in the belly is your mother. And at 26 weeks of this pregnancy, when your mother was in your grandmother's womb, all the eggs she was ever going to carry, one of those eggs is going to become you, whether you're a boy or a girl. So whatever your grandmother was feeling, experiencing at the time when she was pregnant with your mother, you've taken that on. So that's the red thread. And when you understand the power of this, when a woman has a womb and she's the creator of life, you understand. For me, it was like, oh my gosh, if we can create life and give birth to a human from a little speck, we can create a new earth.
I love it.
With our intuition.
Yeah. So how do these things translate? We talked a lot about different things. How do these things translate to mothers, and how do you, if you're in a session, how do you help them?
So in a woman's life, we have rites of passages, significant rites of passages, and in men's lives too, but I'm focusing on women here because that's what I am. So the moment you're born, that is the rite of passage. You come from your mother's womb and you come out into this world. Usually from the moment you're born in a hospital system, from the warmth of the womb, you're out into the world with bright lights, beeping noises, and cold weather. It's not warm and cozy. So from that moment, your nervous system is under attack. Then you have your first menstrual cycle. Usually it's surrounded by shame and hiddenness. So we lose our voice. And then we become a mother and we give birth to a baby. So two rites of passage is happening at once. One, you're giving birth to a child, and you're giving birth to yourself as the mother of the child. And that is usually in the hospital system and intervened with inducing C-sections. It's not done naturally, so it causes trauma. So therefore trauma goes through that the rite of passage. And then we've got menopause, another rite of passage, when you let go of giving your sacred blood to the earth, to the children you've given birth to careers, to your businesses and caring for other people. You retain your sacred blood and you start connecting to the cosmos, to your intuition and visionary abilities. Now that's what they don't tell you about menopause. They give you a patch and suppress those emotions. And that last menopause is the last rite of passage before death, which is another rite of passage, and again it's medicated heavily. So if you look back at your rite of passages and you follow the money, you can see there's great profits to be made from the industrialization of the womb. That's what I call it.
Wow, that you're enlightening us here. The womb, the word matrix means womb. All creation comes from a mother's womb.
Yes.
We wouldn't be here without women, right? Source.
Exactly. And when you get the mother, you get the child, and you can create a matrix system. So we can do the opposite. If we wake up as the mothers, we can create whole children as much as possible, and when they have children, those children are born sovereign and free from trauma, born in nature. You know, before in history, thousands of years ago, the dolphins used to circle a mother giving birth in the ocean. It was like a ceremony, almost like it's a portal where life is coming in, and we've lost all those sacred practices, unfortunately. So
yeah, we have lost those practices. They used to be legal to have babies with dolphins, and their IQs was be an average of like 145 or something.
Yes.
20,000 babies were born, and not one of them had any birth defects or died at birth. It was a real thing. Yeah. And so they knew the power of that. We could go on and on about Sirius B. There's a very connectivity there, but
so that's in the birth. And then in menopause, there's only 5 animals on the planet, mammals, that go through menopause. 4 of them are whales and 1 is the human. The 4 whale species, they become grandmother whales, where they lead their pods into migrations through different oceans. They know where the food is, they know how to keep their pods alive, and they were the grandmother whale was able to lead their younger ones. But only in menopause is it considered a doom and gloom, invisible, you're invisible and your purpose is over. Only in human beings. Why is that? Because 9 million women were burnt as witches in Europe, because most of those women were postmenopausal and they knew how to create medicine through herbs, how to use their intuition to know and avoid conflict on the planet. So the system got rid of all those ladies, and from that time we've developed sister wombs where women don't support women, because if we didn't support a woman in them days, we would probably be killed for supporting another woman. So we're still living that now, and we've got to break that cycle and that spell. It's a spell on us.
When you said, you just brought up the term witch.
Yeah.
When you hear the term witch now, after you've awakened, what does that make you think of? Because I believe if Yeshua or Jesus was alive today walking this earth, they would call him a witch, a male witch, right? What does that make you think of as a witch? And what do you identify with people who know how to move energy?
They're oracles, they're priestesses, which is the word they put to demonize it almost, but they're priestesses, they're oracles, they're wisdom keepers, and that's what the role of a postmenopausal woman was, to hold on to ancient wisdom, pass it down to their children. But we've lost that. Where are all the older ladies they put in nursing homes? You know, they've got Alzheimer's because it's heavily medicated. They don't want us to remember, but we are remembering now because we can feel it in our bones.
Yeah, and you mentioned something earlier about seeds. You were talking about seeds and poisoning the seeds. Tell us a little bit about that.
So when I was writing my book, I'm just going to show you, 7 Wonders of Menopause, okay? Dr. Vandana Shiva talks about how our vegetables and fruits are being sprayed with Roundup, which is a chemical. to get rid of the pesticides. Now, with that chemical, it's actually in the fruit and vegetables we eat. And when you eat that food, and I'm growing a baby inside me, there's reports that even the fetus has traces of that Roundup in the fetus. So our babies are getting almost poisoned by the food we're eating. This is how deep this stuff goes.
Yeah.
You know, it's deep, deep. And as I said, we as women, I think we hold the codes to help change the planet. Because if you can change a woman in a family and she eats well, she looks after herself, automatically it's transferred over to her children and then the partner who's living there, and then that ripple effects goes to communities, countries, and so forth.
I'm glad you brought that up. You just mentioned partner.
Yeah.
What's it like being married? What's it like being married as a conscious, awakened being? Is your husband on his journey, or is he's here to support you? How do you navigate that? Because some of us, they think, or have tinfoil hats because we're so far here. Yeah. How do you navigate marriage?
So I've been married for 20 years. It's a journey. You attract your partner for the evolution of your soul. That's what it's there for. We think it's all romance. No, it's for the partner, me to grow as a woman. So I've attracted my partner who challenges me. You know, they crack you open for you to see things in yourself that needs to improve and grow. And if you look at it as an opportunity for that, then the whole relationship dynamic changes, if that makes sense. I hope I've explained that.
Yes.
Okay.
Is he a flat earther?
He is actually. He's a flat earther. So we both have got our own journeys. I'm not controlling his journey. He doesn't control my journey. But what we do is support each other on our journeys. We're individuals living together, creating a life for our children. And at the end of the day, I don't control him. He doesn't control me. Every day we choose to be together. We have a choice. We live in this crazy world where there's so many different partners. Everybody's jumping around. Fine, if that's what you want, good. But we've chosen, and every day we decide we choose to be together.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What are some other challenges you face now, or what have you faced in life through your awakening? Have you met a lot of people that are at your level of consciousness in Australia?
Not really. It's difficult. It's a lonely journey. When you awaken as a woman or a man, as a child, it can be very lonely because you can't relate to people anymore, because you know there's another way of thinking and being. You don't want to be enslaved. So now what I do in my life, in my being, I add a sacred pause in my thoughts. Do I act from fear, which is the program, or do I act with love and trust? So if I'm feeling fear coming in, I add a sacred pause, take a breath. Am I acting on fear or am I acting on trust? And then I choose the trust option.
I love that.
And then I don't know what's going to happen. There's no guarantees. I face my fears and I choose trust, because that's the only way I'm going to grow. And sometimes I go into fear, you know, we all go in and out, but now it's more going towards trust. So in the beginning there's a bit more fear, then a little bit of trust, and then it turns into a bit more trust and a little bit of fear.
I love that. When somebody asks you about our reality, what's the best way you can describe our reality, as far as a matrix, a simulation, or how do you describe our reality to somebody brand new that's never heard it before?
I describe it from my personal experience. We have been programmed to believe everything is outside of us. We go searching for money, status, things. That is part of the program. They want you to believe that everything is outside of you, that your happiness is from outside of you. But when you realize everything is within you, you stop looking outside of you and you start looking within you. And if you're in a bad situation, ask, is this happening to me or is it happening for me? And usually it's for you to learn something, move forward, and move to the next step of your life. That's how I look at it now.
So do you feel like, what happens when you die, or have you had any near-death experiences, or you mentioned earlier you had some traumas this year. How did you deal with that,
So
knowing what's...
this year, my dad passed away in January, and my mum is in the portal of going through the portal of death. I don't think there's death. We might die in this physical body, but our spirits move on. We're spirits. We're all energy, frequency, and vibration. So if you're frequencing from fear, you will attract fear. If your frequency is trust, you will attract trust, and new opportunities will come your way, and you'll be able to see it instead of looking at the fear and moving to the fear mentality. So I believe in, we're all here to learn something on our journey while we're in this physical body, and it's up to you to decide which way you're going to take it, fear or trust. And the fear has been pushed upon us from everywhere we look. Yeah? And I choose not to feed that fear, and I feed trust. That's how I look at it now.
Yeah, so just getting into it, you know, I talk a lot about, obviously, the things. I try to dip in and out of world events because I know that the more you feed it, the more it grows. The more you, sometimes we think we're helping by amplifying things because it's there. It's always going to be there. It's on the TV, the newspaper, or something where you pass by a television, you don't even have a TV, and somehow the information finds you. Are you conscious of anything going on in the world right now as far as Israel, as far as Ukraine, as far as Russia, as far as they just had a flood yesterday in Texas? Are you conscious of all these things? Because it feels like right now the world is going haywire. Are you conscious of those things?
I'm conscious. I'm aware of it all happening, but I'm aware that this is the program of fear. Now, I have great empathy of all the people suffering, but if you focus on the fear, if I keep watching it, I literally will get sick from watching it. And I've had this happen to me when September the 11th happened. I used to be in financial planning. I was listening to the radio to keep on top of the financial markets. It actually made me sick. So I hear things that are going on. I don't seek the information, it comes my way. But I always choose, let me vibrate in trust and love and ripple that through in my circle, and that circle will grow. And if we grow it big enough, the world will flip over into a beautiful place to live in. And I think we're at the pinnacle of the climax of fear at the moment. And that's the program.
Do you have any fear?
Of course I have fear, but in that moment of fear, I choose trust, and I just believe everything's going to be okay. And another thing I don't do is I don't fear death, because I know it's just another transition. Like the rite of passage, when you're born, you have your first menstrual cycle, you become a mother, menopause, death, and then we move on to the next day, next chapter, next story in our lives.
What do you think your mission is? Like your ultimate mission and goal? Like, we all have individual missions. What do you think the bigger mission is collectively, and what's your role in that?
So my role is, I believe, is to share what I learned when I was writing my book, 7 Wonders of Menopause, with women, and how every rite of passage has been industrialized by a system that profits from women. Okay, so I'll give you an example. The pill. So first of all, you're born in a hospital, there's money to be made. If you have a cesarean, the most intervention you have, the more money the hospitals make. Then you have your first bleed, usually surrounded by shame, silence, don't speak about it. And then they give you a pill. Now when you go on that pill, it changes the partner you choose, because that pill suppresses hormones. So when you're on a natural cycle without birth control, at ovulation, there's these 2 magic hormones that come up, follic stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. And they're the peak hormones for you to choose a good partner that matches, that needs your 2 DNAs to make a beautiful, perfect human being. So you attract that, your visionary abilities are heightened. But when you go on the pill, they're suppressed. So it actually affects the partner you're choosing as well. And then a lot of women find that when they come off the pill, they look at their partner and goes, I don't even find you attractive, because all of a sudden your natural hormones are guiding you to the partner you need in your life.
I love that. Now, one more question. If a UFO pulled up right now and said, you got to go, you completed your mission here, good job, it's time to go, all aboard, would you leave or would you choose to stay?
In that moment, I would ask a sacred pause and then I will trust my intuition in that moment.
Yeah, it's a tough question.
Yeah.
When you have
in the moment, because I don't know until I know what's happening in that moment in my life, and then I would sort of breathe into it, put one hand on my womb, one hand on my chest, breathe, take 3 deep breaths, and ask in that moment what feels right, what feels love, what feels truth, what feels trust.
That's awesome, and I appreciate your time. Show them your book again. I'm going to tag you on this.
7 Wonders of Menopause. It's not really about menopause. It's about the industrialization of the womb and the woman's womb.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me come over here. I'm going to say it. Guys, I want to say, first I want to thank Shavita for her time. For those of you still on here, it's so funny. I'm in London. She reaches out. She's like, hey, you got a minute? I'm like, cool. We make this video, it goes super viral, about parenting and what it's like to be an awakened parent. And then, so I was catching her, she was going the next day to Australia from London, right, where she lives. And then now she's in Sri Lanka, going to Australia, catching her again. So the universe doesn't make mistakes. I want to say thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Jonah. I appreciate you too, and everything you do for us, really.
Hey, I'm waiting for the ship.
Oh.
Anyways, thank you so much. I truly appreciate you. We'll do this again.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right.